Come on, internet. I think my computer connected me to the bad internet. All right, we are live. I'm gonna. Hopefully this doesn't interrupt it. I'm gonna change my word of Shane, which I've watched or seen a couple of things on your YouTube channel. You appear to be newer to YouTube. I only saw I think the 4 videos on there, but if you want to do an introduction, man, and we will jump in and get started. I know there's a bunch of questions over here, and we can get into those as well. But if you want to introduce yourself, and we'll go.
Yeah, so my name's Shane. I've been learning Spanish using kind of an immersion approach for about 2.5 years now. I kind of like to call myself a half-assed version of MIA because I didn't go, all into it. So I want to kind of tell my experience about learning Spanish using an immersion approach, just kind of doing, on average, I calculated I did around 45 minutes to an hour a day. So, MIA suggests about 3 hours a day, and you'll get to a decent level. Well, I think I'm at a decent level 2.5 years in with just an hour a day. So it's just kind of living proof that the method does work, and I just want to kind of tell my story with that.
Yeah, that 45 minutes, is that just your immersion time, or is that including like flashcards or any other study type material as well?
That's just the immersion time. Anki-wise, I didn't do much more than 10 minutes a day, honestly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's I know that a lot of people, and obviously the more immersion you do, obviously the more that you'll get out of it. But I know the guy that I always reference is Kinuku Ninja, because they're always like, you gotta have Japanese, but I mean he watched about 30 minutes a day because that's all the time he had, and clearly the guy has seen really good results.
Yeah, so I haven't seen his videos in a while, but I do remember watching him about his year update, and he was saying that he was understanding Japanese pretty decently.
Yeah.
So I was just like, wow, okay, this has got to work pretty well for European languages too, So that kind of motivated me.
Absolutely. So let me see. What we'll do is, since there's already a ton of questions in here, we'll jump in. We'll do a couple questions, and then maybe I'll come to something, and then we'll do a couple more, and we'll just kind of scroll through them that way. Does that work?
Sure, man.
All right, so we're going to start off with, Ross has a bunch of questions here, so we'll get through some of these. How important do you think it is to choose a dialect when learning Spanish, as in focusing more on European Spanish, South American, or Central American? I think this is a good question because a lot of people studying Spanish, I feel this is a topic that's not addressed a lot. Honestly, if you make this video on your YouTube channel, which dialect of Spanish to pick, I think that it will blow up, man. But yeah, so what do you think about that?
I honestly don't think it's important at all. The only thing I think that would change that is if you're going to go live in Spain or Argentina, Mexico, or something like that. But in general terms, the language is basically the same. There are, minor differences. There's differences in jerga. It's slang. I forgot the word in English. Yeah, so there's differences in slang. There's little nuances. But yeah, in general, the language is pretty much the exact same. Accent-wise, there are some that are harder than others. So if you've been learning Spanish for a while, you kind of see that Chilean Spanish. It's notorious. Yeah. Even Spanish speakers, native Spanish speakers, say they're like, oh, I can't understand what's going on in Chile, right?
Right.
What was that?
I was saying, yeah, right. I know.
Yeah, and so accent-wise, you just pick, man, because I really love the Spanish accent from Spain and from Argentina, but I kind of don't copy that accent. I think I speak with a more neutral / Mexican accent just due to proximity. Right. I'm in Houston, so but I do use a lot of Spanish words from Spain or cuss words like joder. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but yeah.
Be yourself. That's I don't really do it too much, but I never want anybody to not be themselves on my channel. So you do whatever. You're not going to offend me, so you just be yourself. Cool. That's what I want.
Yeah. So and there's words from Argentina. I love the Argentinian accent, but in general, if you're worrying about the dialect or anything, it's not like Arabic. Spanish is pretty much the same language everywhere in the world. Right. So no worries with that.
The only thing I can think of right off in Spanish that's even, and I'm not a good Spanish speaker by any means. I'm not great. I'm not even sure where I would classify myself. But the only thing that I can even think of that I've learned just in my course of learning Spanish is that the word for ticket, like train ticket, is different in Spain versus in Central America. But I think for the most part, it would still, you could get your point across pretty like mutually intelligible.
Yeah, yes, you can, and you can actually say ticket too, and they'll understand you, which is kind of weird. They say ticket. So right. It depends on where you're from. I mean, I've said it to Spanish speakers, they're like, oh, okay, and they'll say it to me. So yeah, nice. It's not that big of a deal. So don't worry about that aspect of Spanish.
Yeah. Let me see. All right, we'll do a couple more, and then I'll jump into some of the questions that I have here. When immersing yourself in native content in the beginning stages, did you use English subtitles?
No. The answer, flat out, no. The only time I remember using it was when I watched La Casa de Papel, and that was only because I just wanted to understand the plot. It was such a good show. But I didn't consider that like study. I was just like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to watch La Casa de Papel with English subtitles and, Spanish coming into my ears. But I didn't consider that any studying whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, other than that, no. It was straight up, no subtitles. I didn't even use Spanish subtitles at all.
Okay, yeah. I'm struggling. Well, I've still not watched a show with English subtitles in Japanese. But I came across a show that I love, man. I absolutely love it. I don't know why. It's called Kantaro, the Sweet Tooth Salaryman, and it's about a dude who's he's a salaryman, and he rushes through his day so he can do these blogs about like desserts, and it's really crazy, and like I finished the series like in a couple days, which sounds like a lie. It's 12 episodes, but like I told myself, I was like, I know that I need to immerse, and I'm gonna watch the show again. But I almost may watch this in English because I love this show so much. I want to have more context for what's happening. So
exactly. That's exactly how I felt with La Casa de Papel, which is Money Heist in English. I don't know if any of you guys know that. Great show. Watch it.
Watch it. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. And I want to watch it because that's one thing. One of my goals, even though I'm learning Japanese, is I do want my Spanish to improve a little bit.
Okay.
And so that's a show that I might actually pick up and watch in my because I do reward myself, right? I get asked this question all the time, and you can actually even talk about this. Like, I have people who are like, how do you fit that time in and blah, blah, blah. Well, I set a goal for an hour of immersion a day.
Okay.
If I don't hit that, I don't watch anything else, right? Now, if it's been a slow week and I've only hit an hour each day, I may spend another 30 minutes if I have extra time doing immersion. But if I've hit that hour and I'm comfortable with it and I feel good, well, I'll reward myself. I'm still going to do the crap I love in English or in whatever. And so I might do that. Like next time I have a little bit of free time when I've got a decent amount of Japanese study in and I feel good, I might watch an episode because it's something I really want to enjoy. But do you have anything like that? Like I know that's always the question, right? How do you maintain learning but not missing out on the stuff that you enjoy? Which for you, I know that you're learning Spanish, and Casa de Papel is a little bit different because it is Spanish. But like in terms of English stuff, whether you play games, watch sports movie, whatever it is, like how do you kind of find time to do that on top of like what is your goal to be able to do both of those things? Because you never want to stop enjoying the crap that you're enjoying.
Exactly.
So how do you kind of maintain and manage that?
Well, I think you kind of like explained it. Rewarding yourself in like this kind of Pavlovian way where you kind of do the hard thing, and then as soon as like that trigger where you do the hard thing and you're done, you kind of do something nice for yourself. So it kind of motivates you to do the hard things. But in terms of myself, I mean, I didn't use that too much. Like I said, I've kind of just half-assed the process. I'm not going to lie to you, So I just do Spanish whenever I had time to kind of just get into it. I didn't really schedule my time around it. In fact, I was pretty busy. I was in college when I first started. And then I kind of moved on. I was working 80 hours a week after I graduated. So there was parts of like my life where Spanish was priority number infinite, like 1,000, like it wasn't there. But yeah, I mean, rewarding yourself in some kind of like Pavlovian way where, you can do the hard thing and then you reward yourself with something else, perfectly fine. But whatever it takes to kind of keep your motivation high, and to make sure that you're not feeling like going to watch Spanish or going to immerse in content is some kind of like, a pain or a drag or something like that. Because I believe that it was Stephen Krashen's, one of his hypotheses was, whenever you're trying to learn a language, it should be you should be motivated to do it, because if you're distracted, if you're anxious, if you're stressed, your brain won't absorb the patterns as well as it should be.
Yeah.
So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I've always been a firm believer in if you create a negative atmosphere around it, even if it's something as simple as I just don't feel like immersing. You know what, dude? don't. Because if you create a negative atmosphere, like I promise you, in the grand scheme of things, if you don't study for 1 day out of a month, it's not going to kill you.
Exactly.
You definitely don't want to create that negative habit.
Right, exactly. Spot on, dude. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say.
Let me see. Some learners criticize learning isolated vocabulary words even alongside photos. Do you think it's effective to learn words on their own instead of just starting with sentences?
Yeah, so I recently made a video just talking about how to try to start Spanish without any prior knowledge. And the first tip I gave everyone was, get a little frequency list of 1,000 words. I don't think more than 1,000 words would be effective, but learning just those 1,000 base words isolated is super effective because that's what I did when I first started, right? When I first started, I grabbed a Anki deck, which is actually on my channel, on my video. I linked it. The 5,000 most common words in Spanish. I don't know what frequency list they use, but it worked out pretty fine. I learned about 2,000 words, and then I could understand 50 to 70%, depending on what I was immersing with, in about 6 months. I got to that 2,000 word mark around a year later, but I was at probably 800 to 1,000 words 6 months in, and yeah, I mean it boosted my comprehension, insane. It was just insane to not be able to understand anything to 50% of what I was hearing in 6 months, just because I used Anki. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It makes sense, man. I think vocabulary words are useful, and I think it depends on the language. I think the idea of what am I trying to say here? I think the idea that I know a lot of people are against learning words in isolation, but I do think, like you said, if it's that first 1,000, I'm using the Tango M5 deck right now in Japanese.
Saw that.
And I also think that that's where immersion comes in handy, right? Because you're learning these words, and even though you're learning them in isolation, if you're immersing, you're seeing them in the wild, so you know how they use.
Exactly.
In Japanese, I learned recently that the thing was saying that this guy was tall. It was he is tall. Well, instead of just saying or I think it might have actually been he was short. It's the word is hikui. Strangely enough, if I saw the kanji, I would know which one it is, but I'm kind of confused, just in my weird state of mind right now. But
right, no worries.
Yeah. The sentence actually reads, if you take it down and break it down literally, it's kare wa sega no hikui, which is his stature is short, but it's obviously translated as he's short. Right. And so I think that's where immersion comes in handy, is learning how to use them. But I don't think there's anything wrong with learning because you have to start somewhere. You have to get words in you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think especially in Spanish. Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
go ahead.
Especially
in Spanish, there's such of a word. What's the word? The words are so similar that you're not going to get too lost in, what you said in Japanese. Maybe in Japanese it might be a different case. I don't know. I'm not too sure. But the grammar in Spanish is so similar to English that you could pretty much construct sentences in your head, word for word, say it, and it'll be right. But it depends on the sentence, of course, right? So isolated vocab cards in that context don't hurt as much as it might in Japanese. So in Spanish, don't worry about it because there's so many cognates. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
There's so many cognates that you could basically understand what's going on without messing up your immersion or your grammar in your head.
Right. Let me see here. Can you explain sentence mining in a summarized, simplistic way, giving an example of one you've done? Do you do sentence mining?
Yeah, actually. So for the first 2.5 years, like I said, I barely sentence mined. All I did was just watch, just content, right, and immerse it and use Anki, just sentence cards with that. But sentence mining wise, I think what you can do with what I've recently started doing is, I'll pull up a BBC Mundo. It's just a Spanish version of BBC news article. I'll just focus on one article. This is kind of like an intensive learning process. But I'll go through the article, and if a sentence I see has a word that I don't know, I'll just copy that, bold the sentence in my Anki deck, and get the translation in English. So I don't even use monolingual translations on that. Just as long as you can understand it in context, go for it. You don't really need to do anything too special to sentence mine. If you want to, sentence mine something that you think is important. So, for example, maybe you're doing, I know a lot of people actually use this. they'll write a journal of what they did in that day, and they'll have native speakers correct them. So if a native speaker corrects a sentence that you got wrong, whatever you're outputting or whatever, you can actually put that into your Anki deck. You can sentence mine that way, just so you know, or you'll remember what you want to say correctly the next time around.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Using it like it further, because like, there's a ton of sites where you can do that. I think that's something that's missing, or people don't utilize, and that myself included, is these online journals for that exact purpose, like the writing practice. And because, yeah, like you said, those corrections, just pop them into Anki, then you can study them that way. Like, for example, when I just mentioned in Japanese, right? Kare wa sega hikui, whatever. Like, knowing, okay, so you use the word stature here, or height, whatever. Like, being able to put that into Anki and being able to recognize, I think that's a good point.
Right.
Is using Hello Talk from day one pointless? I don't, man, I'm on day, I couldn't even tell you, and I don't use Hello Talk.
Yeah. I don't. So I kind of saw this question and started thinking about it. It depends on how much time you have. I really think is the main point. So if you have a limited amount of time, I don't think Hello Talk would be useful from day one, just because you're not going to get as much out of it as you should per unit of time, right? Per minute, whatever, per hour. But if you're, a year in and you understand 80% or something like that, I think it's awesome. Or even 6 months in. Like, I actually did mention that in my recent video, that making friends in the language was super motivating. And that was just for me. I started using Hello Talk maybe 3 months in, right? I met this Venezuelan guy. Shout out to Jose. If you're watching, I don't know. And he's still my friend today. And that was 2 years ago when I met him, right? So that kind of kept me on track, especially through the periods where I was working a lot of hours. He would keep in contact with me, be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And I'll be like, yeah, man, I'm sorry I'm not studying Spanish. But he would at least try to get me into a small conversation and trying to, keep that level of ability up. And we would practice his English together. So, getting embedded into that culture, getting friends in language is super motivating. So if you're at a level where you think that, or if you have enough time where you think that, getting on Hello Talk and spending some time just talking to people, chatting with people there is useful, then go for it. But if you have a short amount of time, I would focus on Anki and input.
Yeah. No, I think so too. Because that's getting, like, I know that there's the language community is kind of divided into the don't output. Holy crap!
Yeah, dude, it's happened to me too, bro.
That's what happened. Like, I just came off of like I was studying Japanese like an hour before, and like my mind is just in Japanese, and so like I know the word output, but like just from where my brain was so focused in Japanese, like it like takes a second to come back down. But so yeah, like it's divided between this output and input, and it's definitely, I think, a good, like, a happy medium between, because I know people are anti-output from the beginning. And I'm focusing more on input, but I do find that like shadowing and stuff helps cement things in my head, or like a course like Pimsleur or something where I repeat, like that actually helps me memorize vocabulary, saying it aloud in context. But
yeah, so I think that your subjective experience of the language is actually super important, no matter what you think that if a study says input is like 1,000 times better than doing this, but you really enjoy shadowing or enjoy talking with people, whatever helps you have fun in language is useful. It's a pragmatic tool to get you from knowing nothing in the language to being fluent in the language. It keeps you motivated. So don't, follow your own path on this. Whatever you think is fun, do it.
Do it. Yep. No, I agree. Do you know anyone who has effectively learned a language without living in the country and immersing, who was 21 plus when they started, to at least a B2 level? Do you know this very specific? I personally do. I know somebody who is.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I know. I have a friend. I talk about him all the time. Which he's living in Japan currently, and he did learn Japanese in Japan, and he learned Korean, but he learned Portuguese and Spanish. Is that it? Portuguese and Spanish in America to a very, very high level. And in a town with 5,000 people. Now there is a decent population of Spanish speakers where I live, but he was not in any Spanish speaking country, and he learned it to a very, very high level here. And it was actually he's actually pretty anti flashcards and stuff. He literally just watches stuff, and he picks it up. Like, it's pretty crazy to see. But so I do know, I'm sure I could think of another person, but he right off specifically is someone I know personally who has absolutely done that exact thing.
Yeah, personally, in my case, I don't think so. I think I'm the only language nerd in my entire social circle.
Right.
Like, I literally don't have anyone else to talk to about this stuff. So that's why I'm like super excited to talk to you about this. But yeah, in my case, I really don't. But that's not because they're not out there; they don't exist. That's just me, you know. I don't really know.
I'm sure that on the in terms of the language learning community, there's probably plenty of people as well. I know people go back and forth because Matt did live in Japan for a little while, but he learned Japanese in America, so I don't know if you would count him or not in terms of Matt versus Japan. And I know I'm trying to think. I might be wrong. I could be wrong, and I feel bad for not knowing this because I consider Luke Truman a very good friend, but he may have learned Cantonese in the UK. I don't remember. He's learning Mandarin right now, but he is in Taiwan learning.
Is that the guy from was it Full-Time Fluency?
Yeah,
that's it.
But I believe he may have learned his Cantonese in the UK. I'm gonna make a note and ask him after this. But anyway, so yeah, I definitely have.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I don't know anyone above 21, but I mean, does 19 count? I do know people that have learned it around there.
Yeah, I would say. I think that comes from a kind of a weird thing where we still grasp the idea that you can't learn a language after you're a certain age.
Right. So that's what I think he was getting at. But I mean, I don't think age actually does matter. I mean, dude, I really don't.
No, I mean, say what you will about Steve Kaufman and how he learns and whatever, but I mean, he's comfortable in he's learned 10 languages after the age of 60. So
exactly, yeah.
You know, it just depends on what you want to put into it. So, let me see here. On What's Tomorrow? My question is, okay, this is actually a fun question. If you think of fluency as a number of cards that you have, how many cards could it be?
I'm trying to find that.
Yeah,
actually, I think that's a good question because I think that comes from the AJAT website. You know, the 10,000 cards will get you to fluency, and then I think Brit versus Japan had a friend that did German, did 10,000 German cards, just to see if he could get fluent in German. I don't think it worked out too well. So I don't think cards is an effective measure of fluency.
Right.
I think it's immersion hours and time you spend with the language and native content.
I think so too. I definitely think that. That is honestly probably the biggest part because I've noticed in other languages, you know, like and the thing with immersion is once the words get in you, you're already used to hearing it. So every sentence, you know, for example, in Spanish, if I would have immersed more, I can understand a lot if it's spoken slowly. But if anybody speaks to me, my very first thing is always going to be like, despacio, por favor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because like,
despacio, señor.
Because I'm not, you know. But with Japanese, from where I've listened to it so much, and I can parse those sounds. Once I get more of the language in me, another 6 months, I'm not going to have to say that all the time, and so.
Right.
And I also think that goes to, there's a lot of patterns I've picked up and a lot of words that I've picked up just immersing that, I mean, it didn't come from vocabulary, like it just works. Like it's hard to explain.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest mystery behind it, you know, because it's like, well, what's the tangible thing? And it's like, it's not, I don't have a card to show you. I just know the word or whatever, the situation.
Yeah. So that's why I don't think cards are effective. I think you just nailed it. You know, it's immersion. Immersion, definitely.
Yeah. Let me see. Marissa said, excited for someone doing MI in Spanish. I'm excited for this because I've also kind of shifted to an immersion approach for Spanish right now. That's super, super cool. Where is Shane originally from? Are you from Houston or are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Houston. But they might be asking about ethnicity. I'm of Indian origin.
Indian origin. Okay. What part? Like from India? Like I know that sounds like I'm not like I feel like that was a stupid question, but like
you're good.
do you have any interest in learning any like languages from what is like I know like India has a bunch of spoken languages, but like
so this is kind of weird, but I've only seen one other person with this. I don't know what his name was. He's learning Japanese right now. But my parents have this kind of like native language that I can like pretty much fully understand. but I can't speak.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of weird because people think that, you know, it's like, oh, I thought input works.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of weird because I learned it with them speaking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
My native language is English. I can't speak it, right? So my parents were always speaking to each other, and I kind of picked it up as a kid. But, you know, I can't speak it. I can't even think of how to say something I want to in that language,
Mm-hmm.
Which is just an interesting case, but you can understand it. But I think the only reason is because I haven't been forced to kind of like immerse in that. You know, I don't know how many immersion hours I have, but I speak Spanish way better than I do my own native or mother tongue or whatever you want to call it.
It's probably one of those. I think from where it's, you know, in your head and stuff, you'd probably. I bet if you spent maybe a couple of months, you'd be good. You know, because I know that like you said, a lot of people are, you know, input. But I think that where some people get the lines crossed is like output, and Matt even talks about this. Like, I don't know why people have been confused about this. Like, output is just as big a part of the journey as input. You have to work on that. Like, it's not that you just input for so long and then you're just like, and boom. Like, you still have to work for that. I mean, maybe I don't know what people think, but like that in terms of what I think, like,
I agree with that. Yep.
I know that it's something you definitely have to work on.
No, totally agree, man.
Let me see here. Language Come Up says, "What's up, guys? Taking a break to check out your show. Question for the guest: have you seen Senor? I said Sir. Senor Avia, best show I've seen in Spanish. So far.
I've seen your channel. Yeah. No, Senor, no lo he visto antes. Haven't. I don't know. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I have not. I need to watch some Spanish TV though. That is for sure. Don't you think that learning through TV shows is overrated? For example, La Casa de Papel is full of dialogues in which the characters do not speak but whisper. Aren't audiobooks better? Interesting question.
Great question. Yeah. So that was a problem originally when I started trying to like watch La Casa de Papel. They would speak and mumble. You'd be like, "What the hell are they saying?" Right? So it's kind of hard to kind of get there. But if you do eventually just kind of train your ear, train your mind to keep focused on it, you do start to understand it. Which is weird because the first time I watched La Casa de Papel, could barely understand it, maybe 10 to 15%. That was probably like a year and a half in. I don't know exactly when, but I came back to it and I could understand like 95%, and that was just from watching, you know, other TV shows or whatever, just immersion, right? But like nothing changed except for the time and the language. So I mean, as long as you keep spending time on the language, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I do want to say TV shows are not overrated because when people speak or when they do something in a TV show, there's also visual context to it.
Yep.
So that improves your level of comprehensible input. So if comprehensible input is the name of the game, a TV show is better than audiobooks. Yeah. But audiobooks do work just fine, perfectly fine.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's one of my things with doing like kind of what I call active immersion. Like in terms of like, I don't count it as active unless there's video and audio at the same time. That way my brain can piece together the visual clues from what I'm hearing.
Right.
And I agree. Like I've read stuff like I'll go through Link and read some of like the mini stories or whatever it is, stuff that I've read a bunch. And that's more so for just practice of seeing like the kanji and learning, because like I'll read through those because I know the stories, and I'll read through those without like Furigan. It'll just be the kanji characters. That way I can practice like the reading of it. But I don't. It's not really helping me outside of just learning to read, which is very important in terms of picking the language up. I definitely think immersion with TV or whatever something with those visual cues is super important.
Yes, I do too. Yep, definitely, man.
Let me see. Adam Tinkoff says, "Dude, I'm old as dirt and still learning." That is awesome. Tokyo the Mad Age Adder says, "Que pasa? Que pasa?
Que pasa, chavales?" There's a guy. There's a Spanish YouTuber. His name's Aaron Play. He's super famous. His intro is like, "Que pasa, chavales?" which means like, "What's up, guys?" But yeah, that's
nice.
That's just
you're good, man. You're good. The phenomenon Shane talks about with his parents' native language is common here in the Philippines. Lots of Chinese Filipino kids hear Fokhin all the time from their family, but they can't speak it. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting. I've seen videos all the time of people like just on various channels where someone will go and they'll try to speak in the language and like, I am Chinese, but I grew up in America and I can understand it. I can understand exactly what you're saying to me, but I cannot speak it.
Exactly. Yep. I think it's popular, definitely.
Yeah. Let me see. Shalma released a video recently where he chatted to locals in Spanish after studying language for only 2 or 3 months. He seemed very comfortable in the language. Do you think that's realistic?
Personally, I don't think it's realistic. After only 2 or 3 months, maybe his experience learning Chinese or Cantonese, Mandarin or Cantonese, might have sped up the process a little bit. But I haven't seen the video. I don't know how well he speaks it. But 2 or 3 months, I honestly don't think it's realistic. I think it's probably heavily edited. But I don't want to be a hater. I don't know.
No,
I
no,
haven't
no.
seen it. So I only saw one actually where I think he said he learned it in a week during the quarantine or 30 days or something. And I do remember him speaking okay, but it was also pretty heavily edited with cuts in between. So you can't tell if they're actually speaking fluently or if he's saying a sentence, cutting it off, saying another sentence, cutting it off, stuff like that.
I think what he does is fine. I think that we have to realize that what he's saying is very basic beginner Spanish, something that you could learn in a couple of weeks or whatever. Like, and I think that the other thing that people need to remember is this dude's job is he's literally made a post on Instagram about how he never thought YouTube was be his job, but it's his main job. So
Exactly.
like I honestly think if I spent 8 hours a day on Spanish for 3 months, I'm not saying I would be fluent, but I guarantee you I could speak.
You'd be a killer, dude.
Like but you take somebody who has a job. I mean, I work 8 to 5. And I come home and I have a son who doesn't go to bed until 7:30 or 8.
Okay.
And I refuse to do anything while he's like, I refuse to put anything above my son.
Right, exactly.
And so, you know, when you're talking about instead of studying 8 hours a day, you're talking about I'm studying an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. So there's a huge difference there. I think there's a couple things to take into account in Shama's video. I'm not taking away what he did. But again, you know, it would be just like me being like, ¿Qué estás haciendo? Like,
yeah.
You know, and then like you being like, I'll
be like, nada.
Yeah.
Nada.
Yeah. And so like, and that's not really anything out of the ordinary that you couldn't learn very, very quickly, you know, or
exactly.
or even like,
from Facebook.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, just anything, you know? So like, I was going to pretend to do something, but I can't remember my conjugations overly well. I guess I could be like, hoy, let's see, trabajo, or trabajo.
¿Trabajaba?
I was trying to say I worked. I struggle with past tense.
Yo trabajé hoy.
Okay. That's right, because it'd be like, I was trying to compare it to like, hablar. Anyway, my Spanish is garbage. But the point is that like,
don't worry about it.
You know what I mean? But see, then right, we just had that huge you know, and you were like, oh, it's this. So then I could be like, oh, okay, hoy yo trabajé, and then boom, I just edited that whole part out of us coming to terms of how to say it, and then there, I could edit together the conversation we just had and make it look like I was just killing it.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to like, you know, clown on his video or whatever. I just don't know. I haven't seen it, so I can't fully answer your question, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. And one thing about Shama's video, I actually just recently talked to Luke Truman about this because I generally have been pretty negative on anything that claims full fluency in any time frame, really, but especially anything under a month. You know, you get into the week, 2 weeks, but one thing about Shama's video is that he does talk about his study program. He talks about immersing regularly. He talks about having 4 to 5 hours and basically having Spanish in his ear all the time.
Right,
and
yeah.
He does talk about learning sentences and things in context. I think that in terms of those fast-track fluency nonsense videos, I do find his to be one of the realest. Because, I mean, you'll have people be like, I did Duolingo 5 minutes a day, and in a week I spoke Spanish perfectly. Like, and that's just absolute nonsense. So,
right, I've seen that.
Let me see here. Do you ever track the amount of hours it took you to learn Spanish while you were going through the process?
Yeah, so I didn't fully track it when I was going through it, but I did run into an estimate. I think in my first video, Spanish Update, I gave an estimate of around 800 to 900 hours of total immersion, but that includes passive. And I did a lot of passive immersion, especially like well, it probably wasn't even passive immersion; it's more background immersion. If you follow how Matt talks about, the immersion differences, right?
Yeah.
During the 6-month period where I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, depending on what it was.
Yeah.
So for a lot of that time, I don't have an accurate count. Before that, I was saying 45 minutes to an hour a day. So I came up to somewhere around 800 to 900 hours, but I don't know what the precision on that is. So,
yeah.
But I have started tracking now, and I've been tracking pretty decently.
Yeah. I think it's hard to do that, because even if you got to think long-term wise, everything that you do generally, like when I count my study time, I always count it just in even minute. I'm not counting seconds and stuff. And you got to think how many seconds are left off. You might round up one time, round down. So it's probably still, give or take, I mean, tens of 20s of hours, if not a little bit more off. So it's hard to do an actual guesstimate, but
right.
But you I think you still know, right? Because like if I was like, man, I've put 1,500 hours into Spanish, and then I was like, what? How? Like obviously I've not spent that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's. Did you use or have you ever tried to use any of the applications when learning, the Duolingos or the Lingo Deers of the world, or have you always just been jump right to immersion?
So, like, I've always had an interest, like, since I was 11 years old in learning Spanish, but it just never came around. I was just like, oh, I got to learn Spanish. This is cool. I was always researching, what's the best method? What's the best method? Never really got onto it until I hit, was it like 2017 November or something is when I first started. But I stopped then, started back in March. So, anyways, it's only been about 2.5 years since I actually got serious about this.
Yeah.
Before that, I'd tried like Duolingo. I'd probably used it for like 2 days and just stopped.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, nothing like that.
It's funny that you mentioned that you spent a lot of time researching, because I said this in a podcast before, and I'll stand by it. Especially the American mentality is, if you knew you could learn Spanish in 100 hours if you studied, you would spend 99 trying to find a method to learn it in 1. Like, you would spend a majority of that time to try to find a faster way to learn it versus just actually doing it. And I mean, I'm guilty too. I always watch.
Yep.
I'll try to find that. And I don't know if that's. I always say it's American, but maybe it's not. But I think
I actually think that was a quote from Einstein. It was like, if you spend most of your time actually defining the problem, then you can easily solve it, or something like that. I just butchered the shit out of it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I've always thought about that, like, because then I've said it before, but I've always wanted to make a YouTube video, and it'll be like the most important language learning video you'll ever watch, and it'll be like 10 seconds, and it'll start, and I'll be like, hey, stop watching videos, go spend time with your language, and that's it.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
But I also enjoy people watch, and I do think that watching. I don't think there's anything wrong with watching stuff. I actually just enjoy. I can listen to the same sentence being said by 30 different people. I just enjoy the actual idea of language learning.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that I had to set those goals for immersion, because if I didn't, and I didn't hit my I would just watch language learning stuff on repeat, right? I would go to Steve Kaufman's channel and I would watch his live streams. I'd watch, that, or I'd go to Matt's channel and listen to him just talk. Like,
I've been there, bro, and like I wasted so much time watching MIA update videos from Japanese.
Oh my
YouTubers.
gosh,
I'm not even studying Japanese. Like, it's ridiculous.
But it's so cool to see. Like,
it's addicting, man. It's addicting.
Yeah,
I've been there.
I'd asked Matt before, like, because there's nothing else like it. Like, there's no other community that I see like I've never really seen a Duolingo 3-month update, or you know what I mean. But like.
Yeah.
And what's cool about MIA is, like, you've got the 3-month, but then you got 6-month and a year, 1.8 or 1.8,
right.
1.5, a year and a half. Like, you've got these huge long updates, and I've never. Maybe there's something out there, but I've never seen anything like that in terms of. And I think the part of that is because people. Once you get I've quit MIA twice. This is my 3rd go around. But I think once you actually get into it, once you get that first couple of weeks or even a month under your belt, and you start to see what's happening, it's going to take a little bit of time. But like, you almost get addicted to this idea, right? You get addicted to just spending time in your language. I don't know. I think it's a really cool phenomenon. I think he's created something very, very cool.
I agree. Fully, man. It's an awesome community.
I'm going to go back up because I missed a couple of questions, but the Larry just said Duolingo 3-month update would destroy Duolingo. And that's
dude.
That's my favorite comment.
That's good. That's perfect, bro.
That's
no,
my that's my favorite.
You're right.
I'm gonna screen cap that and post it on Twitter.
That's awesome. Yes, dude. Tweet that. That's awesome.
Marissa says, "Do you plan to learn another language after Spanish? Would or have you ever tried to learn 2 languages at the same time?"
Awesome question, Marissa. Thank you. Yeah. So my plan after learning Spanish, I'm trying to like make it better until the end of this year, where I feel like pretty comfortable just understanding input and learning or speaking. But if I don't feel that at the end of the year, I'll just keep continuing on to maybe June of next year or something. But after that, Italian,
okay,
and then Portuguese. So kind of the romance family right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've already kind of started with Italian. I've just been doing Anki cards just to kind of get into it, just because like I think it's so awesome. It's such an awesome language.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, with Spanish, you can understand when it's spoken, like I think easier than it's when it's written. It's kind of weird. It's kind of the opposite. It's like Portuguese, you can read it way easier than you can understand it to spoken. So, but yeah, no, definitely, I'm gonna hit Italian and Portuguese next after this.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And I've always heard too, like one, especially like obviously you can study 2 languages that aren't super similar, but I've always heard like if you have a solid foundation in one, then you can kind of start adding. Like if you were to start Spanish and Italian at the same time, it might be brutal. But since you have a very good foundation and base in Spanish, you can start adding that because your brain can keep them separate because you do have that foundation.
Exactly. Yeah, there's little like neural connections with with Spanish it's in there. That's kind of how I picture it. Like with sentence mining, you connect each word to each grammar phrase to each sentence to a context and meaning. It's your old Spanish section of your brain. Right, but then so that won't kind of bleed into the Italian because the Italian will start making its own connections here and there.
Right.
So yeah.
Gotcha. Let me see. Cole T has a question. Man, I can't even.
Okay, llegué a las tantas. That I came after a bunch of questions. Shane se ha centrado en el español europeo o es que no realmente tenía un dialecto de énfasis. I think he asked, has he focused on the European Spanish, or he doesn't have a dialect that he is focusing on? So yeah, like I said before, I think you missed it. I'm not focusing on a certain dialect, but I do love Spanish from Spain. Yo amo el acento de España, como habla Auron Play y otros YouTubers. So, yep.
Nice. I could have tried to read that, but I'm afraid. And I'm actually working. So I keep telling Language Come Up Mark that I'm gonna start reaching out to him and try to speak in Spanish. Like just maybe on a Sunday, spend 30 minutes and just speaking Spanish. So far I have failed at that because I just haven't done it. But honestly, I might take a little bit of the even that away and literally just send. You can send voice messages on Facebook, and I might just try that because I think.
There we go. Yeah.
Like, I think I could practice Spanish without taking away time from my Japanese because of already having at least somewhat of a base in Spanish. But like, I'll read this stuff. Like, that's what frustrates me, right? Like, I'll read this stuff, and I know that I've learned a lot of Spanish in my life, but from where it's been dormant for so long, like, I read some of these things and I'm like, I kind of understand via context, but it frustrates me that I don't understand more, and that just comes from a point of. Like, I really wish I would have found, like, the whole mass immersion thing a long time ago. Which I've known about it for a little while, but I was past the point of studying Spanish when I found it.
Yeah, no, I definitely kind of feel that. I still feel that, it's just like there's some things when I read, I'm just like, wow, it's been 2.5 years. I still can't understand this. And sometimes it'll be something simple. So just kind of like, but immersion fills the gap, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah,
I'm sure if or when you get back to it, you'll be good, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's kind of. Well, see, every time I come back to Japanese, there's a couple of days where it's really kind of just like I remember this last time coming back to it, even though I had studied it a couple of times last year. I remember coming back and being like, oh my god, dude, I'm having trouble recognizing some of these hiragana characters. And that was frustrating because I spent a lot of time remembering and memorizing hiragana, and I can remember coming back to it and being like, what the crap? But after about a day or two, your brain is like, oh, we're dusting that off? Okay, all right, yeah, cool. No, you know this. Like, and it was fine. Like,
exactly.
But
exactly.
you know, so hopefully it'd be something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, man, I think that's a common experience. So
let me see. Italian is such a beautiful language. I need to get back to it. Do you plan on learning Italian through Spanish at the start before the monolingual shift, or will you start off monolingual with Italian? That's a good question. Are you going to learn it? Because I know there's a lot of theories on the idea of laddering.
Right.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to do it through Spanish, or are you doing it through English?
Oh, that's a really good question. Dang, you threw me a hard one, Marissa. I think for now, English, just because like the language distance hasn't been like a problem with Spanish for me. So like I said, I'll probably just follow the same method I did with Spanish. I'll just learn 1,000 Italian words and then just start immersing and see what I could do from there. So yeah, I mean, once you start immersing in the language, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. And you know, I'm kind of iffy on the monolingual transition. I haven't made up my thoughts on it yet, but I haven't used it, and I think man, I don't know. I don't like to say I have a good level because I feel like my level is shit in Spanish, but I can understand a lot and I can communicate. I've had hour-long conversations with people at a normal speed, so I don't know. I'll follow the same method until I feel that it's time to switch. But yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Does Shane know if any parsing dictionaries exist for Spanish for use in Morphman?
Parsing dictionaries. I don't really know what those are. Are you saying like a frequency list or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never ever in my life used Morphman, so I don't. I know what Morphman is. I just have never used it. In terms of parsing dictionaries, I wonder if talking about like kind of how like you go to, which I don't know what it is in Spanish, but like you go to G-Show and like you'll type in the word and it'll have like the phrase, like you can click on a button and you can hear like a native speaker say it or whatever. But I don't know if that's what they're talking about. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, in terms of dictionaries, there's one called Deep L Translator, or it's just a translator. I use that sometimes, but mostly I use Google Translate. It's actually gotten pretty decent because there's a community verified words where like the actual natives would say, okay, this is the best translation for this, and they'll give you a frequency rating too. So Google Translate's been doing pretty good. You might also be talking about like the MIA dictionaries. I know the MIA dictionary add-on has its own set of dictionaries. I haven't done anything with that. I mean, I've used their add-on, but haven't added any other dictionaries. So the answer is probably no to your question.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Now that you have a high level of Spanish, have you learned anything about the contribution of Hispanics to the history and culture of the United States over the last 500 years?
I mean, not more than what I've learned in like school or something like that. Not really. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I wish I could give you a better, more politically correct answer, but no, I'm just as ignorant as ever.
The hard part of Spanish is the sheer number of dialects, speed of speech, and vocabulary size. It gets a bad rap for being easy, which is true for conversational fluency, but beyond that, no. Spanish is the second fastest spoken language in the world.
It is. Right. Yep. Exactly.
Behind Japanese. And they're very close. I think Japanese was 7.58 syllables a second, and Spanish is 7.56. Like, they're right neck and neck.
Right. Yeah, and I do remember reading something that the faster a language is, the more meaning the less meaning each word has. So you need more words to kind of make up for it, which is kind of weird. It's kind of a cool thing, but yeah, that was just a side note.
Yeah. Let's. I'll talk. I'm not to be shocking anybody here, but I'm a massive wrestling fan, and I talk to My buddy at work is a huge wrestling fan, and we'll both watch Japanese wrestling, and he'll be like, man, he just said 30 words, and like this translation on the bottom was like 4 words in English. And I'm like, well, I said,
Yeah.
I'll say, but it goes both ways, because if I wanted to just be like, hey man, you want to maybe go eat or something, I could literally just say tabimasen ka, and like that is like that whole sentence. So I mean, it goes both ways.
Yep.
Let's see. Rhino says a parsing dictionary can determine the dictionary form of a word if the input is in a conjugation. Ah.
Okay.
Gotcha. That's
Interesting. No, yeah, I didn't know that.
So yeah, Jisho does that, because if Jisho, if I were to type in like I ate tabemashita, like it would I think it pops up taberu, and then it'll tell you all the dictionary forms of it. I think Spanish dict is like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's the only online website that I've used before, but I don't really use it.
I think Spanish. I think it does. I could totally be wrong, but I think
it does. It definitely does.
Okay.
Definitely does. Yep.
Do you think schools will ever drop traditional methods of teaching languages in favor? Almost said in favor of immersion-based learning?
Yeah, actually, I have a little brother who's in like the school system right now, and his teacher has been teaching them with a combination of traditional methods, but she speaks to them entirely in Spanish.
Whoa!
So, which is pretty interesting. I was really excited. But then they have tests and they got to do translations, do workbooks and stuff like that. But I mean, she does speak to them only in strictly in Spanish. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, you will. You don't understand how fast you can learn something until it's fight or flight. Like when someone speaks to you only in Spanish and you have to understand it, you'll be amazed at how quickly you'll pick it up. Like, I think a lot of people will be like, "Oh, how should I use a tutor?" Like, I've taken a few Spanish classes even before I had an understanding of Spanish that were completely in Spanish, and I got more out of those than the guy who taught me a ton, spoke to me in English, and then he'd be like, "Okay, but then the next sentence we're going to use."
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not saying it would go the same for Japanese, because Spanish is so close to English. If you pick up a book right now, if you go to the Libros in Español section of your bookstore,
yep,
and you pick up a book, I guarantee you, if you flip to any page, you can understand a lot more of that than you think you can.
Yeah, I mean, I challenge anyone to like go to BBC Mundo, look at an article, and see how many words you can that you know. There's like words that end in tion. They come in from Latin. And they share the same root with English. So like connection is like conexión in Spanish. So it's super interesting. You'll see how many cognates there are, and you'd be so amazed.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Let me see. I did 3 years of immersion in Russian, 5,544 hours of nothing but listening for a whole year. And after that, I was able to speak fluent Russian to my ex-boyfriend's mother for 3 hours.
Holy shit.
That's a lot of...
5,540.
A lot of times. And I know Chanel, I know that she does a lot of listening, because I'll see her tweet all the time about, she'll be like, oh, I just finished Michelle Thomas this, and I just finished, this, that, and the others. So if that was a random person, I don't know if I buy it, but I know Chanel listens.
That's awesome.
All the time.
That's great, dude.
So
that's amazing.
I actually fully believe that.
Wow.
Let me see. 5,000. Do you get mistaken for a native Spanish speaker because of your ethnicity?
Only by other native Spanish speakers, yeah. It's pretty interesting. People are like, where are you from? I'll be like, take a guess. I get Colombia, Mexico, Nicaragua, Guatemala, somewhere around there. I'm just like, not even close.
Whoa.
It's funny, man.
That is pretty funny, man. That's Take it cool, because like just being a random white dude, I'll never be mistaken for anything other than like, I mean, I guess I could hypothetically be mistaken for like somebody from Europe somewhere, but like,
yeah, man,
for the most part, it'll be like, dude, you're Canadian or American, and I'll be like, all right, cool. But which is also cool. That actually goes into a point, and which I do start trying to wrap these up at about an hour, so we will just for more study time and stuff like that. But that's one thing. A lot of people have this I want to be mistaken for a native mentality. And, like, that's one thing, as of now, I have no concern of. I've said it before. I would rather study Japanese to a highly efficient level,
Right.
make some mistakes and be fine with that, and then instead of spending an additional 5 years perfecting it, I would rather spend that 5 years learning an additional language to a conversational level. And that's just me. What are your thoughts on kind of the idea of like have you ever wanted to be like go to Colombia and then be like and just assume you're Colombian, or are you just in that for I want to be conversational, I want to be highly fluent, I want to be highly functional, but in terms of sounding exactly like a native, like what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's the latter. I just want to get to like a level where I'm comfortable with the language. I don't care if I have an accent, but I don't want it to be like a thick accent, just like the normal, hey, you're from here, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But I do want a high level of vocabulary, a decent way to like express myself and make sure that I just don't sound really bad in the language. But I'm not looking for perfection, because I do eventually want to move on to other languages. I want connections with those cultures, to make friends in the language. That's basically, I think, my top goal is to get to a level where I'm comfortable in each language.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing, like anybody watching, if your goal is to sound like a native, in no way, shape, or form am I trashing that. Like,
right.
I think that it's great. And I think that there's a lot of people who only want to learn one thing because of certain reasons. But I love culture so much. Like I want to learn, like, I mean, I want to learn, just off the top of my head, I want to learn Japanese, I want to learn Korean, I want to learn Mandarin, I want to learn Vietnamese. Obviously, I'd like to get my Spanish back to be better. I would like to be able to speak Russian. Like there's a like, just off the top of my head.
Right.
And then I also recently I've really gotten into wanting to study some sort of African language, whether it be like, I mean, just any, there's so many different things, whether it be Zulu or just a couple of different things, and so there's and again, because of being able to, I feel like you get a portal into the culture if you can, if you can at least dabble in the language. I feel like it gets you to an understanding.
It does, yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know who said it, but the quote goes like, if you know just a little of something like physics or engineering or math or whatever, it's not that useful, but every unit of language that is always going to be useful.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yep. If you only know how to say, how are you in Twi, and you run into a Ghanan and you say that, dude,
yep.
It doesn't matter how you respond, or if you say, I don't understand anything, I just know that. You've made that person's day, and probably their week, and probably their month.
There you go. Exactly. I agree fully.
So,
yep.
All right, let's get a couple more questions in here, and then we will start wrapping things up. Let's see. Is Shane planning on typing up a Spanish quick start guide similar to the MIA Japanese quick start guide? I know he has a video, but I was curious if he is planning on fleshing it out more.
Interesting. Never really thought about it. I did kind of make a small little write-up for my brother. I have two brothers. The other one's 22. So I was like, you know what? It would be super cool if you learned Spanish from like zero using like my method or DMIA method, whatever, with the resources that I kind of used, and learning from my mistakes, my failures. But he's not super interested, but he might do it one day. So I don't know. That sounds pretty interesting. I mean, I did write most of my thoughts into the most recent video I made. It's just how to start Spanish is the title or whatever.
Yeah.
But Spanish quick start guide, I might have to think about that more. But interesting idea.
Yeah. No, I think that's a cool idea. And honestly, man, you could probably talk to Matt about. I mean, I know that he's always, I mean, it's always interesting because the thing is, like, I know people pigeonhole it for a Japanese idea, but it's when I first started doing this on this time and I would live stream, people were like, hey, will this work for Russian? Yeah. Right. I mean, it is a concept. It's not a Duolingo. It's not a program. It's not a,
right.
You
don't have to buy anything.
Yeah.
You're not buying anything.
You make your own study guide, because
exactly.
it's what you're wanting to learn. So, people who are not advanced don't really know struggles with Spanish to the point. Let me see. Spanish gets a ton of crap. I think it's because it's such a common language to learn, and very few people actually reach a decent level, let alone a passable accent. I can see that. Seabolt, I'm down to interview on your channel. Been doing MIA with Spanish for a little over a year. Send me a message on Twitter, and we can set that up. Your voice does not match your face. It's probably my internet connection. My internet connection is not good. Like, I don't know what the deal is, but here, like, ever since the quarantine started, my internet connection has been absolute trash. And I guess it's because more people are home, so they're always using it. And, like, where I live, we have Comcast, and Comcast tells you have a guaranteed rate, but it's actually split throughout kind of the, I don't want to say neighborhood, but, like, basically each area gets, like, a certain amount, and it has to split depending on how many people are using it.
Oh, man, that sucks.
So... cool. All right, we are at an hour. Is there anything that you want to go over before we jump off here?
Nothing specifically, unless we missed a question or two.
Okay, let me see. Let me go up here. I was just trying to get through. Let's see. All right, there's the last thing I read. Spinning on. And then language come up was answering Theodore. Talking about grammar. All right. Well, I can. Oh, okay. Here we go. Can Shane understand fast Spanish rap trap music?
Man, that's a good question. Depends on how fast. There's like, my buddy showed me this crazy video where it's like this. I think he's a Mexican guy. He's singing softly and quietly, and then he just starts going in like, yeah, that was insane. No, I could not understand that. I can understand some Bad Bunny, J Balvin. It depends. But honestly, I could barely understand trap music in English, so
yeah,
I don't know how to give you an answer on that.
What's funny is, this is a little anecdote. Like, I'm a huge like hip hop head from like the 90s and early 2000s. Like, I love. There's so much stuff that I love, and like, obviously, like, I always feel like the old dude, because I'm like, man, nothing is ever going to be as amazing as, like, Wu-Tang Clan and, like, just a lot of the crap that I love listening to. With that being said, I used to always make fun of mumble rap. Like, I hate it, right? I hate a lot of the new stuff. And then I went back and I was listening to, specifically, T.I. had a CD called King that had a couple of songs on it, like Bankhead was a big one on there. And anyway, I was listening to these songs and I thought, this is mumble rap. like this stuff. Oh, it's just like, I guess from where I was younger at the time, and it was like my music, quote unquote, I was okay with it. Right. But I've become the old dude who's just like, this is trash.
Music was way better. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was super, super weird. I know that's not language related, but like, I don't know. I just find it very, very weird.
No, definitely.
So, all right, cool. Well,
what's up, Matt?
Matt, I second. I didn't second. I will first getting Shane on, just for someone who's been doing MIA for a long time with Spanish, and I know a lot of people who use MIA are like thinking like, oh, this is only for Japanese. So it might be somebody to look into, man. Well, cool. I am going to. We can wrap some stuff up here. Yeah, Theo, send me a message on Twitter, and we'll make that happen.
Yeah, I like to see that. Yeah, I remember Theo's post.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks a ton for joining, man.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. Like I said, I don't really have anyone else to kind of share my ideas with. So
we'll definitely get back together and chat again. We can chat about a whole bunch of different things, because I feel like the reason I'm doing a lot of these at an hour is because of just being able to immerse. Which actually, I'm getting ready to Skype Matt for a little bit. Then I'm going to end that. But, I've been ending them in an hour because I was going for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And I feel like having people wanting more is more beneficial than overpopulating it. You can always,
you're right.
You can always come back on.
Right. Cool, man. So, I'd be happy to do that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, man. We'll make that happen. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast. Go check out Shane's YouTube channel and all. I left other links in the description, his Twitter and stuff like that. So definitely go support him. Lots of really cool information. A good dude. And go subscribe to him and follow him on Twitter and all that stuff. So
thank you, man.
Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next stream.
See you guys.